de resolver en una clase cada 2 semanas. Y además porque, bueno, particularmente es lo que más me gusta, entonces, bueno, queremos dar una mano con todo lo que es análisis sintáctico. Va a ser una clase práctica, es decir, vamos a hablar de un poco de teoría, pero a la medida que aparezca en el análisis. Y bueno, básicamente es eso. ¿Alguna pregunta antes de empezar? ¿No? Sí. Bueno, entonces, sí. Okay, so I will give you some photocopies. Now I will switch to English. Here. Thank you. So, what conditions are you in? I mean, I know them because they are with me, with the first answer, but what about you? I'm with Francisco. Francisco. Anyone is from German? No? Okay, so Francisco, great. So, we will start with the basics here. So, sentences and clauses. This will be for us, for the sponsors class, it's like the first part of analysis. Say what type of sentence it is. And, well, there are 3. But do you want to write?
Yes.
Okay, there are 3 types. There are 3 ways to analyze, to determine the type of sentence, right? There are like 3. Probably, yeah, 3. Yes, that's not one of the analysis that we can. Hello. Yeah. Entonces, vamos a analizar oraciones, el tipo de oraciones de 3 criterios, ¿no? Sentences. According to the structure. According to meaning and syntactic type. Are you familiar with these terms? Yeah, well, yes. From Constanza, yes. What about you? Savalas? No? Yes. Yeah? Okay, great. So we can go into the structure then. So let's start with sentence number 1. Who wants to read? Okay. Thank you.
The first one, this morning, or
Yes,
this morning, I was looking at some photographs with my mom.
okay, so firstly, according to structure. What type of sentence this is? According to structure.
Do you mean it is a simple or short?
Yeah, exactly.
It is simple. I mean, it is a simple sentence.
Yes. Do you agree? Okay, great. So according to structure, this is a single sentence. What about according to meaning? Or semantics, another term. Yes. No. Exactly. That's exactly. Okay, so what's the difference between a statement and a declarative sentence? What's the difference between these 2 ways to analyze a sentence? Well, the difference is the focus. A statement can be in syntactic, according to syntactic type, it can be a declarative sentence. Acá nos enfocamos en el, digamos, en el meaning, en lo que significa la oración. Acá solo nos enfocamos en cómo se ordenan los constituents en la oración. Por ejemplo, can pass me the sword. En ese caso, according to declarative type, it will be a declarative sentence. But according to meaning, what is it? Is it a statement? It is a question. So that's the main difference, right? Most statements are declarative, but not all statements are declarative sentences. So yes, so both are right. It is a declarative sentence and it is a statement. Is it an affirmative or negative statement?
Affirmative.
Affirmative, yes, exactly. Diane, would you like to go on?
We go with
Number
the
2.
analysis. No.
No, let's go with number 2. Who wants to read? Number 2.
I read it.
Okay.
You tasted the soup to see if it had good enough salt in it.
Okay. And well, let's try to analyze in the terms we have just done it. What do you think of the according to structure? What do you think?
It is complex. Is it complex?
And how can you tell?
Because there is a subordinate clause and a main clause.
How many subordinates?
Subordinate clause and a main clause.
Yeah.
Which one? You ask me which one?
Yeah. Can you read the subordinate?
He tasted the soup to see. He tasted the soup is a main independent clause.
Well, in fact, the main clause is always coextensive with the sentence in complex sentences. So the main clause would be he tasted the soup to see if he had put enough salt in it. That's the main clause. But in bed we can find subordinate clauses. Which are they?
He had put enough salt in it.
Okay. And can you see another one? Exactly. So there's a subordinate clause embedded in the main clause, and there's another subordinate clause embedded in the other subordinate clause. I have to point out, however, that some authors don't consider two infinitival clauses as subordinate clauses. But according to our class, according to Constanzo and according to Sabina, I don't know Zavala's approach, I think it's the same. It is a subordinate clause.
Yeah.
Okay, so it is a subordinate clause, end of story.
Yes. Sorry. Before going on, well, it may be interesting to think how can we tell whether something is a clause or not. So, what can we do in order to identify it?
It has to have a subject
Mm-hmm.
and a verb.
Yes.
Okay.
Well,
Sometimes it doesn't have a subject, but
Yes. As in this case, for example.
in
To
fact,
see.
there is a subject, but we cannot see the subject.
Yes, there is no first, but
Yeah.
there exists. It exists.
And I would object to your definition that there are some clauses which are verbless. For example, we can say, I think Mary pretty. Mary pretty is a subordinate clause, but it is a verbless subordinate clause. Any questions so far? Okay, sorry to interrupt you.
No, it's okay. We're in this together, so let's complement as complement clauses. Okay, well, it is also relevant to mention how, well, this thing that Malena was saying, that the main clause is always the code clause. I mean, the subordinating clauses have the feature of not being able to stand alone, and so they are inside their main clause.
And that is why they are dependent on the main clause.
So we could discuss the verb here. Taste it. What type of verb is this? Okay, lexical according to syntactic type, how would you define it? Is it transitive, intransitive?
It's a transitive.
Yes.
Intransitive? Transitive.
Okay.
Yeah.
And how can you tell that it is transitive?
Because it has the object.
Okay, and would any object work in that? I mean, you may have an object, and it may not be a direct object, which would make the verb be transitive.
I will write two sentences here. Is it the same to say it tastes delicious, or I tasted the soup to see if it had enough salt? No, it's not the same. Okay, why?
Because in the first case, taste it functions like a compliment, right? Like it tastes delicious. Delicious would be the complement, like the subject complement.
Exactly.
Delicious is the predicate compliment.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, but here it is transitive. It is more transitive in fact. More than the other one. And the soup, as you well said, is in the deal. And what's the difference? I mean, why does it change in meaning?
What can we say about delicious?
Okay.
What is an adjective?
And function?
Predicate compliment.
Yeah. Okay, but I was going to focus on something different. How does this change in meaning? Because it's all the same taste, by the way. Idea? Okay. This first taste.
Yeah, like taste in the second sentence, taste would be like try.
Yeah, exactly. This is like try. This means that you have to use will to perform the action. This occurs without will. You taste because you have a tongue, and that's it. But here it requires, this is a verb of attention. That's why. By the way, let's go on. So, would you like to, was it my turn?
Okay. Now we will go with the third one. Who would like to read? And okay, go on.
When she smiled, her cheeks reflected her innocence, and her lips spread in a beautiful gesture that exhibited spontaneity.
Okay, great. What can we say about the structure of the sentence? What type of sentence it is?
I would say it's a compound complement.
Okay, great. And why?
Because there are two clauses that are coordinated by and. Then
So there are two main clauses coordinating by the coordinating conjunction and then embedded in these main clauses we have how many subordinated clauses?
two.
Okay. Yes, I would say three. Could you mention them? In the first one, we have when she smiled, her cheeks reflected her innocence, which is the embedded clause there.
When she smiled.
Okay, good. And then in the second one,
That exhibited.
Yes. And we have another one.
Her innocence.
Yes. No.
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 Now remember we talked about perimeter does not have either subject or predicate, so we cannot have a clause then. In fact, the word, sorry to interrupt you, but the word her, which is a determiner, that it will be conjugated in a different way if it is a clause or if it is a direct object. So accusative case or more, right?
Sorry, I was not.
No, yes, no, okay, so basically that.
Okay.
So in the second main clause we have her lips spread in a beautiful gesture that exhibits spontaneity. I think
Yes.
it's
Spontaneity.
what a word.
Spontaneity. I looked it up.
We have
This is something we need to do even after.
all the time.
Yes.
Just to be sure, we have two embedded clauses there. The first one is spread in a beautiful gesture that exhibited that word, and then that exhibits spontaneity also is the second clause embedded in spreading a beautiful gesture. Well,
Yes,
and are you following more or less?
So there are two embedded clauses, or
Yes, when she smiled, spread in a beautiful gesture that exhibited spontaneity.
The base word is spontaneous, so spontaneity.
Spontaneity.
Something like that.
So three, let's say. When she smiled, spread in a beautiful gesture that exhibited spontaneity.
I'm
Spontaneity.
looking it up. I'm sorry, I'm guilty for that.
That is
word.
spontaneity. Any questions so far?
I'm not understanding why spreading a beautiful gesture is subordinate.
Because this is the same that saying her lips, which were spread.
Okay.
It's a reduced defining relative clause.
Okay.
You can sometimes check these clauses by adding. Oh, sorry, yes.
Do you happen to have any extra?
Oh, yes, extra copies. I didn't realize. I saw you entering the classroom, but okay. No, it's okay.
Okay. So this is a common complex sentence. And in terms of syntactic type, yeah, and according to meaning,
Positive, right? Or affirmative. Affirmative.
yes, statement, affirmative statement. Very good. So now we can. Any questions about?
Yes, I would like to write that sentence,
Okay.
just to be sure about the embedded clauses. So you can mark them.
While she writes them, and while she writes it, what I was going to say about these clauses that are so tricky, what we can do is try adding some constituent before. So in this case, spreading a beautiful gesture, we could say that word spread, right? And then we add that word right before, and so it looks like a clause. And so it is not a filling in the blanks, but try adding some constituent before to see if the result is that of a regular clause. So when we have that doubt, we can try adding some some subject, some auxiliary maybe.
Because what happens here is that some elements were taken out of the embedded clause, and that's And that is why, if we look at it like this, it's like, okay, is this a clause? I'm not so sure. So what we can do is try to add these elements. And here we can see that this is a reduced defining relative clause.
Okay. So far so good. Can we go? Can we go on? So next exercise would be to analyze the sentence. We can do it all together in the blackboard. Yeah. Here we agree.
In the meantime, I'm going to write a phonemic transcription of the word spontaneity, which is, it is really difficult.
You would never forget it after this.
Yeah, and I looked it up, and it's so complicated. Yes, it's called negative. You can start analyzing by yourself the sentence, and then we discuss it in the meantime. Yeah. Yo sé que terminan hacerse escribir todo el párrafo, de hecho escribí todo el párrafo en el i, pero pueden hacer notas porque si no se van a cansar la vida. Se me acaba de acuerdo. Sí, ay, también por ti. Gracias.
Can you read it from the back, or is it too tiny? I tend to write in a tiny letter, so.
¿Necesitamos copias? Están diciendo que acerque la cámara. Ahí va.
Well, we're having trouble with the board because for some reason it is not.
Well, you're not here, you're not compared, but it happens all the time.
Okay. Well, so.
All the classes. Okay, so I will start writing here the first sentence. Now.
This morning.
No.
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 No. Okay.
Sorry?
El verbo que pusiste feo y dice escribir.
Alright, sorry. Because they changed it.
Anyway, there's very little difference in meaning.
Yeah.
That's why
I
we.
changed it.
Yes. Well, at the beginning we were saying the difference between the verb taste in two different occasions.
Still happens the same thing.
Yes, grammar is like this, and we have to try to go one step beyond the literal meaning and try to guess what's well, the real meaning, the pragmatic meaning, I think.
Yeah, according to semantics.
Yes.
not working.
No.
Nice. So we have many more markers.
Okay.
We have markers. Well, in the meantime, what we can do is start thinking of the type of sentence, right? If it's simple, if it's compound, if it's complex, what do you think? Okay, let's try to see how we can check it.
Why is it compound?
Because it has two main clauses. It is compound complex because it has one subordinate clause embedded in the first main clause.
Yes.
Perfect. Yes. So we have the first part. So we have my sheet. Please not.
Okay, so let's mark the clauses, right? So we said that this is compound complex. Tell me where I should write the parentheses for the main clauses. Where?
Between now and fall.
Yep. And here. Yeah. So remember that the coordinated conjunction is always left out of the clause. And how do we mark that this is a sentence? Yeah.
Those are called square brackets.
And tell me where I should mark the subordinate clause.
It was
Yeah, very good. Then, okay, subject. Category and function. What? Function, subject. Category.
Pronoun phrase.
Sorry?
Pronoun phrase headed by personal pronoun.
Yeah. Okay, so
Yes, you said pronoun, right?
pronoun of phrase. Headed by, you said? Yeah. Pronoun. Well, features, we said
That person singular.
personal pronoun, third person singular, and masculine. Very good. Okay, so tell me the predicate. Where should I mark the predicate?
Sorry.
The predicate. You have the subject. Where's the predicate?
The rest.
the rest of the
of
clause.
the clause.
Okay, so here until here.
Yes.
And what about now? Okay, this is in. Very good. Okay, here we said is a cumulative coordinating conjunction, and well, here is subject, right? The same subject, pronoun, phrase. Well, the same, and here the predicate. Which is the category? In Constanzo, we said the head of the, in the predicate, the head of the,
Verb phrase, predicate.
yeah, this is the verb phrase. Well, the same. Okay, yeah. So, ay, se me despidió muy feo, ¿no?
Don't you worry.
What's the head of the verb phrase? Delete. Very good. Okay. What kind of verb phrase is? Okay, so from syntactic type, this is monofaceted. Why?
Delete something.
Yeah. What else? How many complements?
Just one.
Exactly. One complement, which is a direct object. One complement, direct object. Very good.
Sorry, which in this case is direct object can be realized in a noun phrase, or in this case, a clause.
Exactly. They have nominal value. right? Complements have nominal value. That's very, very important. Okay, so according to semantics, what kind of verb would be it? Okay, yes. Yes, it is. That's according to morphology, if it is regular or irregular. According to syntax is, yes? To argument verb or to place verb. I prefer the term to place verb. Very good. And according to morphology, okay, the rest. This is regular or irregular? Regular. Okay. And in this case, is it inflected for? Yeah? Past tense. Inflected. Past tense. Right. Past tense. What else? We said regular, past tense.
Maybe we can identify the arguments.
Yeah, we said. Okay. The arguments of according to semantics. Which were? Which are they? Yeah, exactly. Regular inflected. Me está faltando algo. Inflected for past tense.
There's one lexical maybe.
Single word. Lexical, yeah, very good. ¿Y hay uno más?
Bueno, finite, pero ya pusiste.
Finite, yes. Eso, gracias.
Siempre me olvido de esta parte.
Now, okay, so what category is now inside the clause? Okay, that's category. Category is adverb. Very good. And function inside the of course. Yes, action of time. Y no tengo lugar acá para escribir, pero bueno, action of time. El acronym is AAT, Action of time, adverb. Yes. Very good. And now we have to deal with the supporting clause. Okay, so this supporting clause is embedded in this first main clause. What type of supporting clause is this? Let's state category.
A that clause?
Yeah, that noun clause. Yes, it is a noun clause. That noun clause. Because here, this is illegal, but there could have been a that, right? Which is illegal. This is also called contact that noun clause because it has no that, no supporting conjunction. So let's go on with the analysis of the subordinate. So what's the subject? It. Yeah. Predicate, the rest, right? Okay, so what's predicate? Predicate, which is the category. Yeah, perfect. Always. Well, the head of the verb phrase
Was?
yeah, head,
Popular.
yeah, popular verb. And according to determina,
Primary.
what?
That's a primary verb.
Well, yes, it is a primary verb, but according to, let's say, syntactic type. Well, what type of
Contains predication.
Okay, yeah. Okay, so it is a primary verb. Is it lexical?
No.
No, it's not lexical. What else? Yeah, according to semantic. How many arguments? One?
We don't see it. I have no idea because
That
in
word-
Tabala we don't analyze it like that.
Okay, so I will explain.
I mean even with the predicate don't categorize it. We don't say it's a verb phrase. It's
Okay.
just relevant.
Okay, yes, in fact-
I am following a bit of what
Yeah,
you're
in
saying.
fact, with Constanzo, well, she doesn't do that. She explained it to me like that way because that's the way I explained. But in fact, we say that the verb phrase inside the predicate is the category of it, blah, 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 blah. So yes, you're right. And according to semantics, this is quite silly. When we analyze according to syntactic type, we don't count the subject. We said it has one complement, which is the direct object. Well, en este caso no, porque no es entonces, pero en este es el direct object. Siempre contamos todo menos el sujeto. In cambio, according to semantics, we count the number of participants that the verb requires. So we count the subject. Siempre es, digamos, el complemento que tiene, according to syntactic, y le agregamos el sujeto. Esa es la única diferencia. Claro, sería to place verb as well.
Yes, we differentiate them as internal and external.
Yeah.
Since the subject is required, we call it internal. And so the other one is required by the verb.
Uh-huh. Well, according to morphology, is it regular or irregular? Sí, perdón. No. Regular or irregular?
Irregular.
Irregular, very good. Well,
It's in the inflective past tense.
yeah,
It's a single word.
yeah.
It is functional. Well, I mean, it's not lexical. We say it's functional. I don't know how.
Okay.
It's a function verb.
Yeah,
And it's finite.
yeah, very good. And what about this constituent?
It's a complement.
It's a phrase.
Predicative complement.
Yeah.
And a noun.
What?
There are two types of complements for the intransitive verb of creation.
Yeah, for intransitive verb incomplete predication, there are predicative complements or locative adverbial complements. Predicative complements can be noun phrases or adjectives. And locative adverbial complements are usually PPs and or adverbs because they refer to a place. For example, I go to my bedroom. To my bedroom, it says location, and we are referring that like a change of place, right? And to the bedroom is the destination. That's why to the bedroom is a locative adverbial complement. Pero también podemos decir, por ejemplo, I'm lying there. There is an adverb, and it's referring to location. So lying is an IB of incomplete location, and it requires a location, which is why we say it is a locative adverbial complement. Some authors refer to predicative complements and locative adverbial complements in one set, which is called subjective complement. I don't know if you know that term, but it's the same. This is quite a term, but yeah.
So, Malena, can you repeat that? So, the predicative complement for transitive verbs of incomplete predication can be, you say, adjectives and noun phrases, right?
Yeah.
Is that what you said? You said
Yeah.
And then you say something else.
And yeah, and there we can have locative adverbial complements that refer to a place. Are we good? Okay, great. And that's it, right? We said this is an here. Sorry, what is his? Okay, and function? Yeah, pre-modifier determiner, right?
There are differences between pre-modifier and specifier.
Yes, but it depends on the focus of grammar. Specifier is a term of generative grammar, but pre-modifier is a term of traditional.
Yes,
Yep.
I would say that specifying is also.
Yeah? But well, we
Sometimes
don't.
we have more than one label, but probably if you say specifier, it's not that just saying, I don't know, copy level.
But if you're studying generative, you can say pretty much fire, that's for sure.
Yes, of course, you have to stick to what your teacher said, but
Yeah.
since all grammars are so different in some respects, we come across these things.
Yes, of course. Always stick to what your teacher says. Always. And it's very important in this subject because they have different approaches. Everyone has different approaches to this. So determiner, what kind of determiner? Sorry. What kind of determiner?
It is a possessive.
Yeah. Possessive. And what about case here? We didn't discuss case here.
No.
Yeah, genitive. Very good. Genitive case. And here, what case is this?
Nominative.
Nominative, because it functions as a subject. And, well, tense assigns nominative case. Here, this is because of possession. It's always genitive. Okay, and that's it. Well, third person, singular, masculine, gender, and plural. Port. What kind of word is port? Noun. And it's functioning as head. Let's classify port. What kind of? Speak up.
Common. Abstract.
Common. Yes. Abstract. What else?
Uncountable.
Yep. What else? Well, singular, plural. Singular, because this is uncountable, it's quite silly. But and gender. What gender is this?
Neutral.
Yeah, neuter. What's the difference between neuter and common? Okay, common is referred to people because, for example, I don't know if I is a woman or I can be a man, of course. So when we don't know the gender in a person, we use common. But when we refer to entities or when we refer to things, or in some cases animals, but animals can also have gender, right? In some cases, we say neuter most of the time. Do you want to go on? No quiero monopolizar la clase tampoco.
No, it's okay. Maybe you want to take a picture of this so we can.
It's super messy.
Yes, but a board is a board. Well, so shall we?
We have to analyze the second part. You want me to go on? Or?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes,
The
yes.
second
I thought we had finished.
No, okay. So second main clause. Tell me, what do I do here? We said subject, predicate, well, same features. Let's analyze the predicate. What's the head? Oh, okay, regret. Type of verb. Yep, one or to be. What else?
Regular verb.
Well, regular. What else?
It's a lexical verb. It's finite. It's in the past tense. It's regular. I think that's it.
And according to semantics. Excellent. And last constituent, it.
The direct object.
Yep. Category.
Pronoun.
Yeah, pronominal phrase. Yes. Well, a pronoun. Let's discuss features of it. Yeah.
Singular, third person singular, common gender, or
Neuter.
Neuter. And what about taste?
Accusative.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Exactly. Very good. That's it.
Okay.
Any questions? So far, so good? Okay, great.
Maybe there's anything you would like to think or analyze in some other terms, which we have not.
No me lo compliques.
Bueno, está bien.
Vamos.
So now we will go on with the second one. So you have time.
No. Primero las prioridades, por favor.
¿Cómo le está yendo en lengua? ¿Aprender un poco? Seguro que soy la única, pero yo todavía no puse el Estoy acá porque quería adelantar, pero la verdad no estoy entendiendo nada. Estoy entendiendo muy poco. No leí nada tampoco de Blanco, así que... Bueno, te puedo pasar material adelante si tenía ganas. No sé qué tal de escribirme tampoco, así que... Bueno, cuando apagamos la cámara te cuento un poco. Sí, dale. Mejor no hablar de ciertas cosas. ¿Qué te ayudo?
Well, so, what do you think about this sentence? About the type?
You can.
Yes, of course.
So, first of all, what kind of sentence it is?
Complex sentence?
Yes. Okay.
So I heard compound and complex. What is the
Complex.
complex? Okay, yes.
So what's the difference between compound and complex form?
Compounds are two main clauses.
Okay, yes.
Yes.
Coordinated. And well, complex is sorry. Well, you have like a subordinate.
Yes, it is made up of one main clause and at least one Sí, sí, te marca fuego.
And then, so you said that this is a complex sentence. And well, we can see the embedded clause, which is quite tech, by the way. It is this.
It's a finite clause.
Yes.
How can you tell?
Because there's a conjugated verb.
Okay. In which
Well,
tense?
there's a verb phrase. In the past perfect.
Let's go now with this part.
Shall I?
Yes.
Okay. I'll read this one.
I would say this one.
Well, so one thing that's really important when analyzing sentences is going step by step. So we need to follow some structure. If you find it easier to start from another part, make sure you make it consistent, because otherwise you end up skipping steps. So the easiest one in this case is to find the subject, which is already signaled here. And so can you tell me the function and category? I mean, what is the function it fulfills in the sentence?
Well, function is subject.
Yes.
And category?
Category is pronoun, phrase.
Mhm.
Yes, good.
Yes.
And which are the features of this approach?
It's a personal pronoun.
Yes.
Third person singular, right?
Gender?
Feminine.
Yes. And case?
Yes.
Nice.
Okay, and now we will go on with the predicate, which starts here and goes up to the end.
It is important to notice that always the predicate is everything that is not the subject. So in the previous sentence, we had a now at the beginning, and well, we may get the idea that that is part of the subject because of the position in the sentence. But that's the trick. I mean, that is the difficult thing. We have to identify first the subject.
Okay, so this is the predicate. And which is the verb, the head of the predicate?
Was.
I mark it like it's not called.
No,
I mean, it is.
yeah, it has to be very complete.
So we already know what type of verb it is. The verb to be is probably the most repeated one. And when this happens, when we come across something that we can, let's say, anticipate what's coming, we can right away at least think about what's coming next. So what's the following constituent to this verb?
The predicative compliment.
Yes. And here's one thing I would like to mention, maybe the difference between locative complement, predicative complement, it also exists, subjective complement. And so we have to pay attention to the relationship, the semantic relationship between the both constituents. So being curious has, is connected, yes, with this. We cannot say that she was just by itself. So there is symbiotic relationship that makes us identify a couple of features that help us move on and be able to understand it.
So we can say with an arrow that this is connected with this. Okay. So, and what else? We know that curious is the predicative complement, but just curious or something else? I mean, the predicative complement starts here, and does it go on or it is just curious.
Curious about.
Okay, curious about what? Okay, so all this.
And this is the stage in which most mistakes are made, because if we don't follow the order, what happens is that we end up skipping, and this happens to us. I wouldn't say every day will talk about it for myself. This is a common mistake, since it is so obvious and we would say expectable that we omit it. And so first of all, we identify the whole constituent, and then we analyze it inside. Okay, so my phone will. I'm sorry.
Okay, so predicative complement is the function. And category, what can you tell?
About the whole phrase.
Yes. Say it out loud. Come on.
The compliment is yeah.
So, as this is an adjectival phrase, we know that the head will be an adjective. And what happens with about what I have said?
It's a complement of the adjective.
Yes, good.
And it's a preposition of
Okay, headed by.
preposition of
So this is an adjectival.
Yes, you may say complement of the adjective, but
Or complement to the adjective. In fact, if we say that, I think we can complement to the adjective.
So as we see, we have an embedded clause. Sí, ya lo estoy apoyando. Again, we have too many embedded phrases.
Yes.
So we have a predicate complement, then an adjectival complement, then, because we said that this is the head.
Prepositional complement.
Yes.
Yeah.
Are you
complement
following?
to the preposition.
More or less. Any questions so far?
So labels. Object with a preposition, that's one label. Preposition complement is another label, and the label we use with determina is complement to the preposition.
So now
comes the difficult part, we can say.
yes, because as we see, the preposition is the head of this.
The preposition is the head of the adjective.
It's yes, it's a preposition phrase.
Yes, there.
Lo que es un adjectival phrase es curious about, basically.
Well, so when we know,
So
yes,
preposition complement would be what I had said.
Yes, which in this case, it's the embedded clause.
And what type of clause is it?
WH, that's how we call it, I think. WH clause.
Yes.
Okay. What kind of WH?
Yes, that was my question.
Pardon?
No, it's okay. So,
Nominal.
I think we haven't studied it.
No, no había hecho la habilidad, así que bueno.
Okay. Yes, and it's next topic. So we are spoiling the next topic.
in relation to this clause,
Yes, we haven't started with complex sentences either with Francisco and, well, Marcelo is the one that is in charge of the syntax part of language.
Okay, but if you know the simple sentence.
I mean, which book of which grammar book do you use in, or those are like just things that teachers bring? Because we use square, but sometimes I don't quite understand square.
Well, with Ishemina, we use like 100. We use Cohen, Fed, Arts, Longman. My book of consult is
Yeah.
Okay, I will send you the one that I consult because I think it's quite straightforward. It was written by a teacher at Facultad, and Termina follows kind of the same approach. The only difference is that Palacio adds some stuff about on generative, but it's kind of the same. The only
It's the one
thing
that says grammar notes.
Yes, that one. The famous.
or without Palacios.
sí, amamos a Palacios, yo en mi Biblia la uso para todo.
Yes.
Lo pasa a mí también, después, ¿no?
Sí, obvio.
We create a group.
Phrasing.
Sounds good.
Does that book has things about relative clauses?
Yeah.
Viste la de sobre esa, si lo cambiaste, que no me la
Ni lo leí.
Tiene relative clauses.
Yeah, I read it today, but the fragment of Cohen, it's quite silly. I mean, they're relative clauses. There's, no, it has, well, Palacio does not include that classification,
Okay.
but it depends on where the pronoun, the relative pronoun originates. If it originates as a yo, it would be a relative direct object or something like that. It would, de que fijar de dónde se origina, poner el which, o dónde debería estar. Si se origina sobre el sujeto, it would be a subject relative clause, or if it originates as a DO, it would be a DO relative clause, and that's it.
Okay.
Okay, so we haven't studied this, so I will secret. This, in fact, is relative clause, or also called.
WH focus.
No, that's the other one. WH relative.
Okay, yes.
Well, free relative clause. It's okay. The difference with relative clauses is that they have nominal functions. They occupy the function of complements, of subject. For example, class sentences. Do you remember from the exam? There was an exam you had to take to enter here. Do you remember? Have you?
He said something funny, what he said was funny.
Exactly, what he said. This what is the same as saying the thing that he said. So it's like the antecedent is merged with the relative pronoun, and it forms the what in the same that say the thing that. Okay, so that's why it has a nominal function. Yeah, and these in fact are the only clauses that can function as indirect objects. Why? Because they can refer to people. So yes, so the category is
Free relative clause.
nominal relative clause. That's the other.
Nominal relative.
I wrote it. This has nominal value.
Okay, so, pardon, sorry, go on.
Okay, so as we said, this is a free relative clause, and how can we tell that this is a clause? Okay, which in this case is a subject.
Again, this is a pronoun, so pronominal phrase. So head pronoun. And here we would have common gender, right?
We have here a case of discontinuous predicate. I don't know if you are familiar with it. No?
Bueno, predicados separados.
Yes.
Como el de la vez anterior.
Because, okay,
No, it is not the same example.
Específicamente ese no.
No.
Ah, ese no.
Está bien que vean la similitud, pero es diferente.
so I will explain that later. So we have that this is a subject, prepositional phrase, and the features are first person singular. What else? Okay. Yes. Good. And then here we have this is a verb group. Because as we see, it is composed by an auxiliary and then the lexical verb. So we have an auxiliary for the, yes.
We can analyze it that way.
Okay.
Yes, they only mentioned that this is an auxiliary for the perfect aspect, and that's the story.
Okay.
We don't see it for my group and imperfect aspect.
Forget about it. You see, every teacher has,
We say it's a primary thing.
okay, yes,
So we say
primary.
is the operator. We actually said a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, operator. What
We're
is
traumatized.
operator? Do you know the concept of operator? What is operator?
Eh? It has the nice properties. No, yeah, it has the nice properties. It's the part of the sentence that when we make inversion, it inverts with the subject. We use it to make the negative.
Yeah, exactly. So
And
this is
it
the
carries
first
the code and emphasis. Well,
exactly. It is the particle, the auxiliary that looks for inversion or for questions, and it is the first auxiliary. For example, if you say I have been studying, it will be have, the operator. Another thing is that, in fact, this sentence is ambiguous. We can say she was curious about what I had said. In that interpretation, I'm saying that if it is a query clause, you told me something and I found it curious what you said, told me. I'm not asking a question. But the other interpretation is she was curious about what he had said, and in fact, I don't know what he had said, what I had said. He didn't know what I had said. ¿Se entiende? Como que está preguntando, there's a gap of information of, I'm asking, what did you say? But in the other interpretation, I listened to what you said, and I found it curious.
Okay, so as we were saying, this is the primary auxiliary in the perfective aspect, and well, of course, it is in the past. And then we have the verb, which is lexical, and it is in the past. And what type of verb is it?
said
Yes.
it's a lexical verb.
Okay, but in terms of syntactic type. Okay, it is monotransitive, and here it is the problem, let's say, with the discontinuous predicate. We said, I have said it, for example. Okay, this is a monotransitive verb, but where is the direct object?
the object is at the beginning of it.
Yes. So this is called, don't you worry, WH movement because it originates here. In this case, we call this a free relative. Why free relative pronoun? Because it has nominal value. It is in the position of the direct object. It is not an adverb. It can be pronoun, adverb, and determiner. Well, in this case, it's a pronoun. And free relative because it is the same of the clause.
Sorry, what is a pronoun? Because it has nominal value, because it is originated as do. So whenever it has nominal value, it will be called a pronoun because it stands for a noun. That's the meaning of pronoun. It's a determiner that stands for a noun.
In fact, all determiners, or I would say most, can be turned into pronouns. So they have that, like that, they can be interchanged.
I would say all of them.
I try not to be so assertive because I make mistakes.
I want to add something. This is called the people from Determina. Because in fact, I agree that this is a monotransitive verb, and some people agree this is a monotransitive verb, but Determina follows the approach that there are some elided arguments. So she would say that there's a person who says something, there's a message, and there's a receiver. So there's a elided, what I had said to somebody, and that must be mentioned in our analysis.
So in semantic terms, oh sorry.
What if I say, I said something funny? Something funny together is a direct object, or only something and funny is something else?
I believe that we should write it and analyze it, because it will always depend on the context.
Yeah, in fact, it has two interpretations.
It can be a relative clause, or it can be like that.
Yeah, I would say it is a post modifier.
Yes, relative clause or post modifier.
And both, something funny is video, but no, you can't see the other interpretation. I'm thinking. Estaba pensando de quizás podría referirse, I was funny when I said that. So in that case, it would be like some kind of adjunct that we haven't studied, but no, let's stick to that.
No podría ser.
What do you mean with
Because something would be the object, right? I'm funny.
In the sentence, can you repeat it?
I
said
something funny.
Yes.
why object? Sorry, I was lost. Why object? Funny.
Object
No,
complement.
complement.
Okay,
No,
so-
I believe no, because you can say I said something and I'm sorry, so it doesn't require funny. Funny to me is post modifying something. Yes.
In fact, we can think it as I said something that is funny.
Exactly.
And so all of a sudden we have a clause there in
Because-
one single word.
By the way, I will say something which was miraculous to me. Relative clauses function as post modifiers, like always. Yes, relative clauses always function as a post modifier to a noun. Because they have adjective value. It is the same as saying funny, because they both have adjective value.
So,
Yes.
clauses always function as a modifier.
As a post modifier.
There is one thing that is relevant to mention. Relative clauses, well, this is the el discursito. They narrow down the scope of reference of the antecedent.
Define relative clauses.
Yes, yes, defining. O sea, la realidad es que hay diferencia entre un post modifier y una relative clause. La idea es poder más o menos identificarlas. Pero decir que es functions as, por ahí algún docente dice, no está siendo completamente específico y absoluto con tus palabras, entonces está todo mal lo que estás diciendo.
The thing is that post modifier is always function, and although it is true that, all relative clauses function as post modifiers, not all post modifiers are relative clauses. We can have adjectives. The thing is that what goes into the box of post modifier is always something that has adjective value. Creo que sí. Aparte fue como darle cuenta que cada cuerpo que eso ya no fue en nuestra clase, ¿no?
So is there anything that you would like to say or to ask or to talk about? Maybe not related with the analysis that we are
Maybe
doing?
some questions.
There was some type of that courses that were in the second exam. That was a positive that clauses. Maybe.
A position.
Yeah, it was.
A position.
They
have.
have. Son dos
Trataban en el examen.
El examen.
Decían como complement to noun.
Yeah.
For example, I looked for some examples different, and it said the problem that, something, the idea that.
Claro.
Yeah.
La diferencia
And
entre
later was the positive.
La diferencia entre decir the suggestion that we should study grammar is good, or the suggestion that I said was wrong.
Yeah.
Hay una diferencia.
Yeah. Do you see the difference? Okay.
Kind of.
I love this topic. Thank you for mentioning because I love this topic.
O sea, la idea de las aposiciones es que tienen nominal value.
Yeah.
Y una aposición no. Algo que tiene nominal value no puede estar funcionando como algo que tiene valor adjetival.
Exacto.
Porque ahí es cuando empiezan tipo a tener como dolor los profesores porque dicen, no, ¿qué me estás diciendo? Entonces es un tema como delicado.
Yo vi que decía que para saber si es una positive that clause, teníamos que reemplazar el that, tratar de reemplazarlo por el which, y si no se podía, era una positive.
Okay, yo así, también, que, no, ahora,
Bueno, lo que vos querés pensar es lo que dije antes, narrow down the scope of reference. O sea, scope of reference es lo que vemos, ¿sí? Scope es literalmente lo que tenemos a la vista. Si yo del montón quiero especificar uno, ¿sí? The suggestion that I gave you, esa es una de todas las suggestions que se vieron en la clase. Entonces, una de todas. En ese caso no es a positive, porque estás narrowing down, ¿sí? Achicando el scope of reference. Pero cuando es un noun, no estás narrowing down. De hecho, lo puedes poner en la posición de sujeto.
claro.
That we should study grammar is the suggestion. Pero no.
Exactly.
That I gave is the suggestion. No sé si te suena.
That I should set up a business is the suggestion. So that's why this has nominal value. We can skip this and we can say that I should set up a business is a terrible idea and it would have sense. It has a meaning. It could be the subject. I can say the suggestion is the suggestion was the suggestion that I gave was a terrible idea, but this is the same as this. It is the same. We can take this out, and it would have meaning.
Yeah.
Besides, this is a deverbal noun. It comes from a verb. What verb? To suggest. So you suggest something, and they would be the direct object in that. So most deverbal nouns accept appositions. Which in fact I will correct you. I don't know where you read it, but I think that here the function is apposition, and the category would be the noun clause. At least that's how I studied it. Of course, labels can change.
And do, and will.
Yeah.
Mira que con eso estoy de acuerdo.
This is true.
Eso es lo que dicen todas las personas que cursaron grammar.
Yeah.
Porque te llevaste mal con un profesor y podés haber perdido más de 2 años.
Es verdad.
Es demasiado, ¿verdad?
Muy verdad.
Es muy...
Okay, what's the difference here? We can say that I gave because it is not the same. This is reducing. We say which suggestion? Well, the one that I gave. But you cannot skip this. This would be ungrammatical. Let's see if we skip this.
And we are on time.
Another deverbal noun, we can say destruction, to destroy.
Sorry, it would be ungrammatical to skip this. Yeah, destroy, the destruction of
The destruction of the city, maybe.
No, porque eso sería un modifier. Destruction, we can say destruction of the house.
Puede ser una tarta.
The idea.
That I should study grammar.
Yeah.
That's a typical example.
Había uno con building.
Building.
Ya había uno con building. O algo así. Bueno, no importa. Voy a traer más ejemplos cuando la persona.
Igual sabemos son deverbal nouns, ¿no?
That come from a verb.
O sea, por ejemplo, si decimos suggestion, tenemos el verbo suggest.
Okay, it's fine.
Yes, it's time.
Okay, now questions. Any questions? ¿Cómo les parece la clase? Bien. Les voy a pasar, es más, me gustaría que agarren un papel y me digan qué temas les gustaría practicar en sus clases. Porque lo que quisimos hacer acá, me voy a volver acá. Lo que quisimos hacer acá es algo más general, empezando desde sabemos y clases. Pero quizás tienen temas específicos que quieren tratar, así que estaría bueno que escriban un papel y nos ven. Quizás pueden pasar un papel.
Sí, ahora yo soy honesta, que no sé nada.
Y para vos que no sé tu nombre, Antonella, yo entré a la primera cátedra de gramática sin saber sujeto y predicado. Así que sé lo que es no entender nada, pero vas a ver que de a poco, o sea, en el momento en el que empiezas a cursar y...
O sea, tengo lo básico que es lo que se tomaron en el examen de ingreso, pero era en español, si no me acuerdo.
It's quite similar, in fact. Well, thank you for coming. Thank you for joining. We will be doing this every 2 weeks. So next meeting would be not next week, but the other one. We have to arrange the schedule, which time and stuff, but you will be invited.
Marcelo, sí.
Está por definir.
Está por definir el horario.
Vamos a estar circulando una hoja con questions o topics que les gustaría.
Bueno, le voy a estar pasando unos cuadros con realidades, por si no los tienen, y les cuento que, bueno, ya saben que somos parte de Nexo, y están invitadísimos si quieren juntarse, nos juntamos todos los miércoles a las 20. Si se quieren pasar, siempre los queremos invitar a que nos den sus ideas y que, nada, si les gustó que sigan participando. Así que les voy a pasar esto. no sé qué, las exclamaciones.